You're tuned into the Writing Community Chat Show, the live streaming YouTube podcast that brings you the stories of authors, screenwriters, and more. Indie or established, this show's for the community, and we invite you to be a part of it. Head to the writingcommunitychatshow.com for more info. The WCCS. Together as one, we get it done.
Hello and welcome to this week's Writing Community Chat Show. And welcome to season 11, episode 19 of the Writing Community Chat Show. It's kind of crazy that we're at that stage of the show already. I'm here with Chris Hooley. We've got a fantastic guest coming up tonight who isn't currently here, but she will be. Fear not. And we've got some great news to go along, and I'm glad to be back because I missed the show Friday. Chris, you did a fantastic job, and the magnificent Matt Adcock joined in as co-host with you, and he was also superb as well as the guest. So hello, how are you doing, Chris Hooley?
Yeah, I've got a very noisy household at the minute, but yeah, I'm happy to be here. Obviously, it's great to add cock to the situation. On Friday with Matt Adcock, yeah. He's he had a huge passion, let's say, for Mr. Powell, and
massive.
I thought it was a great opportunity to have him, speak to one of his heroes, and with you out of the chair, I thought, you know what, let's ask Mr. Adcock and get him on and chat to Gareth.
Yes, because of the after show that happened on after Gareth's show, you and Brandon were having a conversation, which I caught up on earlier, and you mentioned that occasionally you have been known to do the show without your pants on. And when I said that, the American crossover didn't quite work out. So pants, as in trousers, were not on in that situation whilst doing the show.
Yeah, I mean, obviously going on the record, I'm always wearing some form of bottom half attire.
Yes.
Whether it be boxer shorts or pajama bottoms. But, I'm in my 30s now. So if I'm doing a Friday night show and I'm not going out anywhere, then, yeah, I'm going to get comfy and get in my pajamas.
Well, why not? And I'm sure that helps with breeziness and all sorts of good things. Nice cup of tea there. Also, yes, I did. I was not on the show because I was completing on Saturday a charity walk, which is a 28-mile trek across the Brecon Beacons, which is a notorious terrible place to do exercise in South Wales, used very much by the military and the SAS. And it was, we did it, and it took us like 13 hours or something from the time we left our tent to the time we got back. It was a big slog, and it was soaking wet the entire way through, but we did it. So thank you for the support, the ones that did support us, and for the kind messages and all that great stuff. Yeah, really appreciated that, and it helped us through quite a tricky situation. And it wasn't just 26 miles. There were some really steep sections there, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely tell. I saw the image that you posted on Twitter throughout the day. There was several. And the first one, you're all smiley and happy and like, yay. And then the last mile to go, Adcock commented and he said, that looks like a scene from a horror movie in terms of who's going to survive. Because it did look like you were very tired at the end there.
Certainly were. And yeah, we got back to the tent and we were like, yeah, it's time to celebrate. And we were so tired. I think we had 2 drinks and fell asleep. So yeah, it was definitely a great cause for the Alzheimer's Society. So yeah, but also good news announced today, Chris, good and bad news, because that's what life is. We can't always have things going the way we want them, but things will work out in the right way at some stage. We were happy to announce that the amazing company Pan Macmillan, the powerhouses of publishing industry, have invited the WCCS to be partners at the Harrogate Crime Writers Festival, which is in just over a week. And that is a fantastic opportunity for us as a podcast that's been working very hard over the past three or so years. And what that means is that over the Friday and Saturday, and possibly into Sunday, this show will be interviewing authors for Pan Macmillan in their tent, alongside hosting some of their giveaways. So that is a fantastic opportunity. If you're going, come and look for us there. However, there is some bad news. My co-host right there, Mr. Chris Hooley, for work commitments and other things, cannot attend with me. which is a massive shame because we were definitely trying to get him back in the shower. And maybe that's why he can't come. But no, sure, there's some genuine reasons behind that. But also what we decided to do, instead of making that a big negative on this show, which is what we like to do, not make a negative, but to promote the community, we've decided to reach out to the authors that are going to Harrogate to see if some of those want to join me for some of the interviews during that time, which I've spoken to the amazing Jason at Pang Macmillan, and he has agreed that that is a good thing and he's happy for that to happen. So that's what we're looking to do now. And that can be a great community feature by bringing members of the writing community into that interview sequence with the amazing Pang Macmillan. It's a fantastic opportunity.
No, it really is. Obviously, it's a yin and yang situation for me because it's happy. I'm ecstatic to be involved, and the fact that we got to this point with Pang Macmillan is fantastic. And obviously, really looking forward to working with them. We've worked with them already in terms of booking authors on the show and having their authors on the WCCS. So I feel like this is the next step. And unfortunately, obviously, I can't make that next step. But there's a lot of authors that, from tonight, the disappointment of me not being able to go, I've got in touch with a few people that I know who are going, and I know who are friends of the show and have been on the show and are great on camera. And they're already really keen to get involved. So, I think it's going to be really special. I think it's a unique opportunity that hopefully it's the first of many times working with, major publishers at these events. And hopefully there's many more in the future that I can attend.
Yeah, indeed.
So yeah, definitely.
No, you nailed that on the head. And it is, as we mentioned, it's the start of something we hope is a continuous program. And we've worked very professionally to make that happen. It isn't by chance. And that's a lot of work between the both of us going in that direction. And I'm sure there'll be many more opportunities. And there's a lot of local events that we haven't even got into looking at yet. So if there's an event in your area, a writing event that you attend that isn't the Crime Writers Festival in Harrogate, please let us know. It doesn't have to be just crime writing. It can be any literary event. And I know Hay on Wye is enormous. I know there's amazing local bookshops that hold little events. So even if it's something like that and you think we'd be interested in attending and documenting for a lot of other people as well, drop us a comment or an email at the Writing Community Chat Show at gmail.com. You can fill us in, because it's something that we're trying to do is bring the community and the real life community into the Twitter universe and our community in the virtual world too.
Yeah, it's our next step, really, to be honest. Obviously, we started off as just an audio podcast, and then we transitioned into visual, and now we're coming to a town near you, and we're going to interview your authors. But yeah, I think it's the next step, and it's an exciting step. And we've been to Harrogate before, and we've done it before. But I think what we did the first time around is we just went for the experience and just to enjoy it. Whereas this time we're also going for the experience and to enjoy it. But we've put a professional hat on, and we've gone, what can we do in advance, and how can we make the most of it and plan? And, what can we offer other people as well in terms of, I think we're up there in a lot of the podcast charts in terms of interviews and things like that. So, even when a guest doesn't turn up, we can talk for over 8 minutes.
Well, there's a lot to talk about.
To do. Yeah, there is a lot to talk about. But, we've made that transition. And I think, we're showing our value to the writing community. And, it just speaks volumes, the amount of people who are willing to get involved with us when we say, we're looking for people to step in. And, everyone's really friendly in the community. We know that anyway. But, it's been overwhelming already, and it's only been half an hour or so since putting the request out there. So I'm sure you're going to get a load of really good authors, a load of really good people that are going to want to be involved, and it's going to be a fantastic show as a result, or series of shows, depends on how much footage you actually acquire. But yeah, it's going to be great.
Fantastic, it really is. But also there's a bit of news that Chris doesn't even know about, and this isn't big news, it's just a logistic news. So the Writing Community Chat Show, as I mentioned, is on season 11, episode 19, and we've been looking at a way to shove in season 20. Not shove in, that sounds kind of just whimsical. Is that fit there? I don't know. But what I'm trying to say is that there's 3 shows on this week. There's 2 bonus shows and a show on Friday as usual. starting off with Tetyana, who is going to hopefully appear very soon. Hopefully that's just a little technical issue. And we've got another show on Wednesday for you and a show on Friday. And then obviously next week there is not a show planned as Harrogate is taking place. So when we come back the week after, that's when season 20 is going to start. So this week is kind of a celebration towards the end of season 11 and starting season 12. Bonkers. So if you're on social media and there is an author that you really like, whether they're indie authors, whether they're super authors in terms of traditional published, please Twitter them or Facebook, whatever it is you're on social media wise, tag them and say that you'd like to see them on the show, because you'd be amazed how powerful that is and how that can actually make people get in contact with us that we might not have thought about interviewing, but it could be someone that you're really interested in seeing and learning about. So if you've got someone you want to learn about the road to writing, their story, just tweet them or get them in contact on social media and send them our way. That works wonders. So season 12 on the horizon. Please send us your requests.
Yeah, I mean, we've already we've got guests, but I don't even know what season this will fall into. But people have booked in for September and November and things like that. So it's going to be a strange one. But I'm definitely hoping that we can get more requests from people. You know, Gareth was a huge request. A lot of people mentioned him. I was thinking about it before he came on, and we had a guest a few years ago, and it was Maggie, the Happy Doctor. I can't remember the title of her book, but she said, "Oh, you got to get Gareth Powell on." And obviously at the time we were getting a lot of people coming on anyway, and we had a lot of bookings. But you know, even if it takes us another couple of years to get to the author that you request, we will get there. And you know, your requests do help us, because as much as we enjoy reading and trying to find new authors and things like that, and obviously we do work with publishers and stuff now as well, but you know, we rely on people watching the show to give us their input and to point us in the direction as to who you think will be interesting, and we'll do our best to get them on. And Brandon, I know you did tag us in a book the other day. You mentioned that with an author, and yeah, it looked like a great book. But to be honest, with the post, it was potential. He was basically, an author was promoting their book and saying, "Look, I've got a few copies to give away of my book in exchange for a review." And I love that. I think it's great. It's a really good way of connecting with people and getting more reviews and things like that. But to be honest, I just didn't want to let that person down in terms of going, "Yeah, I'll take your book," and then not read it and review it. So I just sort of stay clear of that. I've got way too many books to read already. I'm literally in the phase of not buying anything until I've finished at least the 3 books that I've got alternating at the minute.
I mean, people do have insane TBRs, and it's something that we fell into the trap when we started the show. We wanted to please everybody, and we said, "Yeah, we'll try and check your book out," and it just keeps building and building. So that's a great reason, and that's exactly the reason that I did the same thing, Chris. We don't want to commit ourselves to something we can't deliver with. So yeah, but Chris is right. We depend on people watching and listening to this show. The podcast over the past couple of weeks has picked up a little bit, and we thank you if you're a podcast listener. And we don't really get to know you guys like we do with the YouTube following. So if you are a podcast listener, please make yourself aware. Don't milk yourself. And we will try and communicate with you, because we'd like to know if you are a podcast listener. But also, there is the YouTube channel over the past few weeks has also grown. So thank you for you watching this back, and thank you if you are listening back. And we obviously are catering to our live audience, but if there's anything you'd like to know, anything you'd like us to change on the show, please drop us a little DM. We are here for you guys, and to make the show as best, as useful to you and entertaining to you as possible. So your help will make us step in the right direction in that sense.
Yeah, and in terms of changing things, obviously we are going to switch up the background that we've currently got, because it says season 11 at the bottom. So maybe suggest the background for season 12. It does stick with us. I don't actually know where that is, but where is that?
That's a good shout. But yeah, suggest a theme I like, because obviously someone might say desert or space and whatever. We can find and cater to that request.
Yeah, I think it's one way of getting people involved. I really liked, obviously you can see tonight's author's book there in the top corner, but I loved it when we did the Beer Token book promotion and we didn't necessarily know who that was going to be. That was always a good little feature that we had, and a good way of plugging the show, like not just the show but the person's book. So we used to ask for a little donation online to have your book up there in the corner, and yeah, it was essentially a buy us a beer and we'll stick your book in the top corner, depending on the author that we have on. Or, we just did it in numerical order. So whoever came first come, first serve. And obviously we've got some amazing guests coming on for season 12 already. And sometimes we do just hook a big fish out of the blue. I'm pretty sure Ian Rankin, when we had him on, there was a Beer Token book promotion in the corner. We promoted somebody's book before that. So
I think for most of the first few seasons there was, and that promotion is still available, and it's the link for it is in the description of the YouTube video and the podcast. But you literally have to get in touch, and the beer token book promotion is still a real thing, and for a very, very small price. In fact, Dale, the self-publishing guru Dale Roberts, was on the show before, and he couldn't believe we were offering such a service for so cheap. In terms of book promotion, and that is someone who is industry renowned and who really knows his stuff. So that's a testament to the effectiveness and the value of that promotion. And we upgraded since we started doing that, because we offered now a book trailer service. If you haven't got one, we can make up a very generic one for you and narrate the blurb for you. So on the show, we could play that trailer and it would read out, and we'd leave a link to it in the description. Or if you already have one, we can just play that on the show and leave the link there as well. So it's a really good opportunity for you to promote your book in that sense.
Yeah, I think halftime trailer-thon would be pretty good. We could be like, the equivalent of the American Super Bowl on a weekly basis, and we have a really good trailer in the middle of the show, just there between part 1 and part 2. I think. Wow. Yeah, I think. Maybe we should try it.
I think that's pretty ambitious, Chris. I mean, we won't get the funds for the adverts quite like Super Bowl.
No, but someone's book trailer playing in the middle, I think it's a great talking point as well. A lot of people would really value that as well. I think Halo obviously just dropped in there, but Halo's got some fantastic trailers for her books. And I know a lot of people, we're kind of going that way as a writing community anyway. Like, the people that I've been following since the start, it was enough at the start to be, sending interesting and engaging tweets that were just, wordplay and things like that. Whereas now people have got trailers, they've got weird animations going on, they've got little mini series of their characters going on, and there's so many things that people are having to do to be noticed in the world, in a sense. It's a good opportunity for people to come on and have that 2-minute slot.
And I agree completely.
Ross is the trailer king. Ross has done some really good stuff for us. Sulk Media Productions, I'm sure you won't mind me plugging that a little bit. But yeah, he's a fantastic person for trailers, and AC Merkel is actually really good as well for your animation side of things. He really does do some wonderful things to make your covers pop. And there's some people in the writing community, I'm not going to name names, that I've paid for cover designs that make them pop, and I just thought, wow, like you're making a hell of a lot of money there for not an awful lot. But yeah, AC Merkel's he's fantastic at the cover designs to make them pop. So yeah, if you're looking for a trailer, look for Ross Young on Twitter. He is the author of the Deadhead series, so you'll be able to see that. And yeah, if you're looking for some sort of trailer animation, AC Merkel's really good, and Anna Mosicat, I think, as well does it, and she's pretty good as well.
She does indeed, yeah. They're all great, and I think Ross was quite instrumental in our development as a younger show, because he was giving us a lot of trailers, a lot of video introductions for the show, especially when we started on YouTube. So we can't thank him enough for the work he did for the show as well, and has been a superb supporter. So yeah, fantastic. The community really pulls together. I've just sent an email, Chris, to our connection for this guest tonight, and they were very aware that the show was on, so perhaps time zones may have been an issue. But we will find out. We'll find out. I'm sure we'll get the show at some point, whether it's now or, in fact, another time. But it is a very interesting guest, so I hope we do get that story, especially with what's going on in the world right now. It's going to be very topical and interesting indeed. Brandon says it's Pride Week in Omaha, so there's rainbows everywhere. Happy Pride Week in Omaha. It's just very wet here, to be honest. It's rained. Summer was here, and now it's gone. Yeah.
I mean, it's quite similar here. We can imagine like a few rainbows would be nice.
Yeah. That would include the sun coming out, which it hasn't. So,
yeah. But no, I hope you enjoyed Pride Week, Brandon. Let us know what you're doing in this week. Because my idea of a celebration for a week would mean maybe doing something different on a evening basis or a daily basis. Why a week? Like, I suppose that's my question. We should ask questions because we're on the Writing Community Chat Show and we normally ask questions. So why a week?
It is interesting because a lot of certain days have a single day, and like a week is very good because you get to celebrate for a whole week. I think that's every day should be like that.
Yeah. Or, why stop at a week? If you're going to do a week, do a month.
Yeah. I mean, like in the UK, if you're lucky to have the day, it might be like St. David's Day in Wales. We don't even stop for that. It's just like, yeah, St. David's Day, get on with it. But I'd like, I know in Ireland, St. Patrick's Day, they have a whole week of partying.
Yeah. I think they have 2 days of partying and then 5 days of recovery.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like it. Yeah, Brandon's rectifying me here. He's saying, yeah, we do have a Pride Month. I know, but I just think, obviously, he said it's in Omaha this week. It sounds like a bit of a touring, maybe a touring Pride. It's your turn to host Pride this week.
Pride on tour, yeah.
It moves around America. Maybe that is the case. Maybe that's what happens.
Yeah. Sarah said Pride is in the UK. June is Pride Month, so we do have a Pride Month in the UK too. And Halo said, do they have glitter bombs in like New York City Pride? So they have glitter bombs there.
Yeah, see that as a parent, that I couldn't get on board with that.
Glitter bombs.
Yeah, I hate glitter in general. Like my kids will use glitter sometimes, and then I'll be finding it in like my cup of tea a week later. I'll find it like I'll be eating some bolognese and there'll be something
bolognese.
Some bolognese. Our guest has actually just commented in the chat.
Oh my goodness! Right, Tetyana. Apologies. Never received an email. It was sent to Jess, and she did say she was passing it on to you. So can you can you Twitter us a message, and I will send it to you right now. So apologies for that. They obviously wasn't sent through to you. But we'll rectify that right now. If you can Twitter us, we can get you on the show, which is good. At least she was watching, so that's great. An extra viewer.
Brandon, imagine a glittered up ET.
A glitter.
A glittered up ET.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know, me and Brandon had, and you probably read it, well, not read it, but listened to it. We had a moment with ET. Not me and him personally.
That
but
sounds really ropey.
Yeah, it may sound a bit ropey, but
me and Brandon had a moment with ET. Yeah.
Yeah. He doesn't want to go home anymore. That's all I can say. He's pretty happy to stick around.
Right, I'm sending the link right now.
Yeah. You do that, and I'll have a little nosy on the Twitter. To see what the response has been like to the Harrogate announcement, because a lot of people were congratulating us and things like that, which was pretty good.
It was, and
I will just have a little nosy as to what's been said. So, like I said before, Vicky Newman, defo up for that.
She has since stated that she has to cancel some sort of appointment. So I don't think she's.
Liv Matthews has said DM me and I'll see if I can help, which is great. We love Liv Matthews on the show. She's been on a couple of times. Sam Holland has also said that she would love to get involved. I'm about and would love to get involved. So that's 2 brilliant authors already that looking to help out and get involved. And I knew that would be the case because it's such a good community of people. And those are 3 brilliant authors.
Right. Our guest has arrived. No fault of her own, a little bit late, which is fine. We've chatted for a long time, Chris. So I will get straight into the introductions and we'll get our guest on because we can't wait for the story, and I'm sure you guys are looking forward to it as well. So tonight's guest is a Ukrainian-American author and freelance writer, which is quite interesting to talk about. She is also a translator for the Frontline News and has written and edited articles for magazines in New York and in the UK. She's featured in the Telegraph and the New York Times and speaks several languages, which is impressive because I can only speak one. And tonight we'll be discussing her new book, The Soldier's Child, which is a powerful and a heartbreaking World War II saga based on a true story, which you can see the amazing cover, which is beautiful up above Chris Yulia's head there. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the amazing Tetyana Denford. Hello.
Hi, thank you so much for that introduction.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for joining us. I'm sorry we got miscommunications there.
No, it's fine. I was never passed along the information, but I just decided to kind of watch the show, and I'm like, how is this going to happen without me?
Well, I'm glad you did message, because we just assumed that maybe, because it's happened once before where time zones have got wrong and maybe you turned up at the end, but you're here and that's fantastic. So
thanks.
If you're happy to go 10 minutes over, we've only kind of missed 10 minutes because we
Fine
rambled
by me.
anyway.
I love a good chat.
Yes, brilliant. Well, first of all, what a wonderful room you're in.
Oh, thank you. That's well, I don't really have an office in my house. My husband does. He has his own kind of company. So he has a dedicated office. Me, I just write wherever I can find space.
Come on, you should have an office as well.
One day.
Well, we know how you feel because bedroom wall and kitchen wall, Chris, is it? Or
no, this is a living room wall, believe it or not. But yeah.
I think surely that's the way forward. I think we all have to find new ways of working. And I think the more kind of interesting and human the background is, the more kind of relatable it is, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. It looks fantastic. And you've got pretty lights going on in the background as well. Okay, so I love fairy lights. I have to keep them on all year round because Christmas is my favorite, especially Ukrainian Christmases are always like really special. And that just keeps me happy. So amazing. I know it's not Christmas, but I love that time as well. It's dark, it's rainy, it's cozy by the the lights and all that stuff. What is a Ukrainian Christmas like compared to an average, I don't know, American Christmas?
I mean, I think, everybody gets together for Christmas in general, kind of all over the world, if people do celebrate it. I mean, it's a very kind of gathering holiday, but Ukrainians have all of these amazing traditions. The Christmas meal is normally 12 courses to represent the 12 disciples.
Wow.
And everything has a meaning. There's lots of kind of mysticism around Ukrainian culture. And I don't know. And our music is, our lullabies are in minor keys. So the Ukrainian music is also just a little bit, I wouldn't use the term morose, but it's always minor. It's always heavy and emotional. And I find that really kind of magical. And fun fact is everybody knows the song, The Carol of the Bells, but actually it's a Ukrainian song originally. And it's called Shchedrik. And it's about and actually has nothing to do with Christmas. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Incredible. Thanks for that. Okay. So where in the world are you right now?
New York.
In New York. And how is New York at the moment?
It's good. It's a bit rainy and miserable, kind of like a really good British summer. I mean,
you've nailed it, because that's exactly what we're going through right now after a really hot pre-summer. So yeah.
I was in London for meetings last week, and the week before that, it all went by very quickly. But it was like walking around in an armpit. It was very hot, sticky, unbearable. It was very surprising because I lived in the UK for 12 years. So I'm thinking, this is weird. Normally it's the rain I can deal with, or the temperate weather, but that was very, very hot for.
It has been like that. Cool. Okay, so we're going to get into the first part of the show. Part one is called The Road to Writing. So we like to learn about kind of your road into writing and kind of the inspirations in your life. So I'm going to play a little video and then we're going to get straight into that. Okay.
Yeah.
Once I find it. So Tetyana, can you please let us know, like, where was the inspiration for writing for you in the first place, and what were the first steps into that world?
I had always been writing since I was little. I was entering competitions by the time I was 12 years old, like short story competitions, publishing poetry, kind of in newspapers, just little bits here and there. So it was always kind of around. It was always like a world that I disappeared to quite happily. Especially as an only child, I kind of had to entertain myself. And that was a way of kind of creating my own world, creating characters. And I had very good teachers, to the point, you know, I had very good mentors in high school and university who kind of encouraged me to keep going and said I had maybe something that I could do as a career. And I think teachers kind of help immensely in that kind of in those years when you're such a sponge as a young adult. And when I moved after university, I moved to New York City and I started writing freelance for Elle and for Vogue. And I was also auditioning for musicals on the side because I was also a trained singer. That's another kind of little fun fact. But while I was doing that, I was just earning money. I was earning money waitressing, but I was earning money also as a writer. And I thought, okay, well, that's interesting. And it was always something new. I was attending fashion shows and I was around kind of very interesting and creative personalities. So that was kind of living in New York City and really learning the hard way how to make a start as a freelancer. It's, you know, if you're going to do it anywhere, you're going to do it. You can, if you can do it in New York and you can try and persevere. It's a really hard life and you are a dime a dozen. There's so many talented, creative people there. It just kind of gave me a thicker skin to be able to pursue that as a legitimate career. And then when I lived in the UK, I kind of put the writing off to the side. I was blogging and, you know, I was starting a family and I was doing a lot of different jobs while we were trying to figure out what we wanted to do. Because we were living in London. My husband has a media company and he was off traveling a lot. And I didn't really have any group of friends. I didn't have a community kind of built around me. I had to find my own way. So I was doing little kind of creative jobs, temping for media companies. And then I was still writing on the side. And it was really, I started in earnest after I became a mother, which is really a funny thing. You would think that that's the last thing that would happen after you decide to start having a family and it's really busy and it's becomes like you don't have any time for yourself. And the time for me that I could carve out, I used as writing time. So early in the morning, late at night, in the park when the kids were playing or at a soft play center. And once I realized that, like after the third baby, she was a year old, and my husband and I had a conversation. He's like, what do you want to do with your life? And I was like, and when somebody asks you that, you think, oh my God, like, what a difficult question. As a woman, you're kind of programmed to just keep being a mother and making that your identity. And some people are really happy with that, and that's fine. But for me, it's just not the only thing I wanted to do, but I couldn't figure out how to get back to my writing career. And he was just kind of pushing me to just do it, just to figure out a way to do it. And it was the push I needed really when I started writing my first novel in earnest. And it coincided with a bit of information that my mother gave me about my grandmother. And it all kind of, the pieces fell into place. I was like, I'm the only person that can write this story. And screw it. Like we have one life, might as well just go for it. So yeah, that's when that was in 2015. I just said, okay, I'm going to try. What's the worst that could happen? I'm writing it for myself. I'm not writing it for any kind of industry or an editorial team because I had nobody. I wrote it for myself, which is really the purest way you can start writing a book is. So yeah, that's when it began.
Right, that's fascinating. So when you finish this manuscript then and you've got the book and you're happy with it in terms of, you wrote it for yourself, and I'm assuming that initially you thought, I don't care if anybody else likes it. If I like it, I'm happy. Yeah. Talk us through that process of you taking the manuscript and then distributing it to the larger world and how that went for you.
I first wanted to go the traditional route, and I said to myself, okay, I'm going to approach agents, and I wanted to be the hardest worker in the room. So I thought, okay, right, I'm going to present my manuscript the best way I can. So I edited it until my eyes were popping out of my head, and then I couldn't do more with it at that point, I thought. And then what you do is you spend ideally a couple of months figuring out, like making a list of all the editors in the genre, and then doing your homework as far as like how they want you to submit, what their emails. Oh no, not that. What their emails are, and you just kind of create a plan for yourself. And then once I had that list, then I created a query letter.
Doug definitely agrees.
Oh my God.
Like, yes, this is great advice.
He never says anything, and suddenly now he has an opinion.
Yeah,
I think
maybe he's wanting to get involved with the process. Maybe he's not a fan of agents or something.
If you're watching now, try and have a guess what the dog's name is and see if you can get that right, by the way. It's always a good game we like to play.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway, and then I did a query letter, and the query letter is basically the pitch. You're basically pitching somebody to get a job, and you have to present yourself with some kind of X factor. You have to have a hook. You have to kind of have a really good, a really good blurb, and you want them to read the attached, few chapters. And I was like, right, I'm going to do this the best way I can. And, I was really excited about that process because I thought, okay, well, there's a way to do it. And then there's a way that like, I can maybe get in, maybe I can get the door open. And I was really lucky because the first 12, I think, agents that I sent my manuscript to, I got 12 full requests.
Wow.
Which is an incredible, like that's a unicorn, right? That never, I was so blessed that they saw potential in the story. Now, long story short, after about 6 months, of submitting back and forth, it's all rejections, which is okay. And of course it hurts, but I remember thinking, I can't take that personally. Agents are human beings. They have a job to do. And I remember thinking every single person that writes me a no, thank you, I'm going to respond really professionally. I never want to burn any bridges. And, I'm lucky because even though I decided to self-publish after that, which I'll go into in a minute, I have all of these connections to these amazing agents in the industry because again, you never know what's going to happen in the future. You never know who you're going to meet at an event, who you're going to say hello to, who you're going to be connected to. And I would give that advice to anybody, like never take it personally. Some agents get really terribly rude emails in response going, you this, you that, like you lost out. I'm thinking that's the last thing you want to do. And they were very complimentary of my work. But again, at the time, Ukrainian historical fiction was not selling. So, and then I decided to self-publish because I thought, why am I waiting around for somebody to open the door for me? I'm going to do it myself. And self-publishing for a while, not anymore slowly, but self-publishing for a while had a stigma to it where people just think that self-published authors just put their books together with duct tape or like a PowerPoint presentation. And it never seems to sit on the same level as traditionally published books. And I thought to myself, I'm going to set some money aside and I'm going to hire a cover designer. I'm going to make it look as good as possible so that I can put my book on a shelf next to a traditionally published book. That was my goal. And I did myself proud. I was doing it for me. I was doing it so that I have a book that can, create a little bit of a legacy, of a family story for my kids, for my children's children. And then I think, honestly, the amount of energy I put into it, and I love marketing myself on social media. I love using like audiences and a platform, and I love engaging with readers. And I was lucky that the stars aligned and, Book Couture, Hachette kind of approached me and said, we like what you're doing. So I just think I'm really stubborn. And yeah, that was kind of how I got into the world of kind of published books, I guess. I just kind of thought that I just needed to keep doing what I'm doing. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it really shows that it's not the first time we've heard a story in the sense of you are clearly very prepared and businesslike in your approach to self-publishing. And we had a guy, Jack, who was on before a couple of weeks ago, who had a very same approach and was very successful as a self-publisher. And it's quite apparent then Bookouture, for example, is looking for that kind of author that is willing or to already put the work in and to package themselves in the right way before they even approach in that sense.
Yeah.
So that in itself is a fantastic tip for anyone looking to do the same, that have the plan, make the effort in that sense of marketing and packaging yourself before you can try and move on in that direction, because that will all help the publisher make the easy decision, right?
Completely. And I think, I would say to anybody, I didn't start out with a business brain like how I think now, because I started out going, oh, I'm just a writer and a room of my own. And it was all very romantic. But ultimately, if you're going to present yourself to the industry, you have to put a business hat on. You have to approach it, especially now with all this technology and the digital age, you have to use it to the best of your ability. And I think a lot of authors, and that's okay for them, but they don't understand how to use social media. And I do think it gives writers a leg up a little bit if they can play with Canva, Instagram, now Threads, Twitter. I mean, it's like try and kind of, get into that a little bit, because it's a bit tedious at first when you're still learning, but it is a lot of fun, because ultimately marketing, all of that is just a psychological game. And if I can get, more people reading my words, that's ultimately the goal. It's not about making it on a Times bestseller list or, interviews in magazines and book awards, even though all of that stuff is really nice. But I think it's a distraction a lot of times from writers who want to get a book published. I think it's kind of slightly intimidating. They look at that and go, well, in order to be legitimate, I have to do that. No, you don't. You just have to engage with readers, whether they hate it or love your book. Just keep kind of engaging with an audience, and it will prove to be very beneficial over time.
Fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously you've put in all this effort to market yourself, and you love the marketing game, as you've just said. So what made you take the step with Bookouture then, in terms of partnering up with them and going in a different direction to what you were already on?
I love this question, Chris. And honestly, nobody really asks me those kind of questions, because it was a huge decision. And I think it should be for any self-published author who is approached by a publisher, whether it's traditional, hybrid, or digital. When they approached me, we had a few meetings actually, because I said to myself, I could keep doing what I'm doing, and I was making money. I was happy with how it was all going. And I thought to myself, well, okay, I'll listen to what they have to say, but it's me interviewing them as much as it is them interviewing me. And I think you have to approach it from a position of not of arrogance, but of empowerment a little bit, because it's your art and you want it positioned in a way that you're happy with. And they are such a great forward-thinking company. They were the first ones when the war happened in Ukraine. It's tragic and it's awful. And my family is in Ukraine, kind of living through it. And, but at the same time, in order to get voices heard, you have to be a little bit cynical about it and think there are going to be media companies, publishers who are going to search out Ukrainian voices. That's just how it is. And I was prepared to kind of think in a very, I don't know. And like, again, I put my business hat on and I made sure all of my social media was very specific about the fact that I am Ukrainian, I'm an author. And that's how I was able to not just amplify my own story, but loads of other Ukrainian voices who, we can kind of amplify each other. And when they approached me and I had meetings with them, and they were like, they were the first one that were thinking they are digital first and print on demand. And I thought that was the way they presented their kind of their business model is very, very unique, and it's very forward thinking, and it's very flexible compared to a traditionally published, like a traditional publisher. So one of the big five is more like, I compare it to like a giant ship that you have to move in order to change. And it goes very slowly because they are built on a kind of an institution that is just what it is, you know, and people are happy with that. And that's great. But I like the fact that Book Couture move quickly and they have a huge reach and they have a huge stable of authors and everyone's really happy. And the way they treat you is not just as a tool to make money and then move aside for the next author. They treat you as a collaborator, as a human being, as an artist. And I would honestly recommend anybody thinking about going to a digital first or even hybrid publisher, you know, because some of the work I like doing, you know, we collaborate. Some of the work I do, some of the work they do, and they email me with the sales results. They talk to me about why they're using a certain cover or why they're using a certain title. So I find that just really empowering as an author. And that's exactly who I want to be. I don't want to be used and then cast aside. And then I'm like, my books are gathering dust and nobody cares anymore.
I think that's a fantastic explanation of how that all works. But also what I really like is how you mentioned that it's a two-way process when you're dealing with a publisher as a self-published author, because there's a lot of authors that might get in that position and think that I'm excited because someone's approached me and they'll agree to whatever's placed on the table. But you're quite right in representing the fact that you are the author, you are the person providing that art and that work. So you should be having a big say in how that relationship is taken forward. So that is a great thing to be aware of if you're in that position, that don't just snap it up if you think it's not a great deal. The power's in your hands at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's very seductive. I have to say, like anytime I got an agent emailing me when I was approaching, I was like, oh, I've made it. But it's not what you think it is. You know, these book advances that now recently on Twitter, people have been revealing what advances are really like and how they are used. I mean, you get a book advance, but then you don't, once you earn that out or you spend it, whatever, you don't make any money for years sometimes, you know, because they want you to earn that back. So with me, digital first, I see the, not that it's about money, because you shouldn't write to be rich and famous. Nobody, like, that's the wrong way to approach a writing career. You have to love doing what you're doing, which I do. And I'm really lucky to have this team around me. But in the first 3 months, I was getting paid. I mean, it's a great job to work with, to be creative and do what you love and kind of, you know, be in charge mostly of your own story and how you want your voice perceived. But then, you know, you're working, it's a job, but, you know, they've hired you and you're making money and it's great. It's just a very modern, and I think it should be a bit more normalized, really. So, yeah.
Excellent.
So if we can talk about your writing in terms of, like, obviously you've talked about the audience that may potentially be coming to your work because of the situation in Ukraine and looking for Ukrainian voices. Does that put any additional pressure on your writing that you didn't think you would experience when you first started out?
Oh, I love these questions. Honestly, this is one of the best interviews. I mean, I think it did. I mean, I think definitely the first novel, it was already out. I did it myself. And then when they acquired it, they kind of polished it up a bit and they had me do historically accurate, a bit more kind of stuff to kind of fix and whatever. But yes, I think because the second book, The Soldier's Child, was written during a war and it felt like things were happening in parallel. I wanted people to understand that as much as the big things did happen, it's still historical fiction. It still has to be a story that's stitched together with, you know, a fictitious narrative in order to kind of bring all these moments together. And I wanted people to not see it as a an account of war and an account of exactly what happened. I wanted it to be more of a universal kind of human story about perseverance, about hope, about kind of what Ukrainians have gone through for generations. I tried to do that with my first one, but I think this one is, I'm proud of both of my books, but I think this one has it in spades. I think this one has more of an epic story to it that will kind of hit harder because of what's been happening in Ukraine over the last year.
That is a fantastic answer, and I'll hold you right there, because we're going to play part 2 of the show, which is What's the Story, and we can talk all about The Soldier's Child, which is a fantastic segue off the back of that conversation. So here's part 2. So, Tetyana, I had to stop you there because you were starting to talk about that story and I really wanted it to carry on, but I'd like to do it in kind of the right order, because now we've had that kind of build up to it. It'd be great if you could let everybody watching and listening know all about The Soldier's Child and what that's all about.
Sure. So The Soldier's Child is based on the true story of, it's two stories that are running in parallel. One is about a woman who, she has a son, and the man that she loves, that she's not allowed to marry, is a Hungarian soldier. And because at the time, it was a big scandal for a woman to be unwed and pregnant, she was forced to raise that child as his aunt. And she eventually, he never knew that this was his mother. She was living in the same house as the rest of her family while this child was then adopted by her brother. And they lose touch, and he goes off and lives his life after the war, and he escapes the war and emigrates to America. She is captured under Russian occupation and sent to Siberia, and she survives a gulag for 8 years. And the story is her survival and kind of his survival in a new country, and how they may or may not find each other again.
Yeah, it's an incredible story. And the one thing I find tricky with having to approach this is having the historical fiction side of it, but also the true side of it, and how you kind of manage both sides to make to pay respects to the actual story, but also to make it entertaining in the sense of a historical fiction novel. Yeah. How did you kind of balance the approach between the two?
I mean, there is a lot of research that I do, not just my own family research and passenger lists and things, but there's a lot of research that I do about, the war, how Ukrainians were affected by it, the choices that they have to make. It was the whole kind of recently when the war started, and on Twitter, there were a lot of people who had no idea about Ukrainian history saying, oh, well, they're Nazi sympathizers. Well, actually, what was happening was they had to choose. They were between a rock and a hard place. They either chose the Germans, who would help them defeat Russia, or they choose Russians and then they'd be sent to Siberia. That's not an easy choice. And I think the more research I started doing on it, the more I wanted to represent Ukrainians in an accurately historical light. Whilst I was researching the true stories that I'm trying to represent, so many people had gone through similar. So I kind of wanted to, these stories, especially this one, this new novel, kind of pays respects to not just these true characters, the main characters in my story, but also all Ukrainians who had to live through this, and had to survive prison camps, who were, malnourished, who froze to death, who, I just wanted to tie everything together so that people could see their own kind of distant family stories in this, and they could kind of, be inspired to see if they have any stories like this in their pasts. So, yeah.
Yeah, Tetyana, so I suppose my question there is, how, as a writer, how do you capture a nation's pain and joy and put them into characters? Like, what would your tip be there for people trying to do similar stuff?
I think it would be impossible to set yourself that goal. First of all, I think you're really kind of going to be really hard on yourself to try and kind of accurately do that, because ultimately everybody's experiencing this war differently. And yet there is kind of commonalities, right? When it comes to grief, when it comes to, figuring out a way to use music and art as a way of resistance. I think the best way to capture it is probably to get to the very core of what human beings do when they are living through something like this. Even if you haven't, I think you have to read, say, for example, you want to write about, I don't know, Syria and Syrians or Palestinians, or, you really have to read real accounts. And then if you're going to write if you're going to write fiction based on those real accounts, you have to write down kind of the core elements of what you felt when you were writing, or when you were reading those stories from those voices who have lived through that. Now, I was lucky because when I wrote my first novel, I had recordings of my grandmother telling me how she felt. And this book is actually based on my paternal great grandmother, actually. So I was given secondhand, third-hand information from my father about his father. And so I honestly think if you are removed from a culture completely and a people, and you want to write fiction about those experiences, the best thing to do is to look for the sources that have lived through that, which is why I think people are going to want to write about Ukraine and Ukrainians as a result of this war, obviously. But there are people who will have no connection to Ukraine who want to do that. And to do that fairly, I think you have to seek out those voices who have been through it first, and then dilute what you felt from those stories, and then use that to build a new story. So it's like, human beings are so similar all across the world. It doesn't matter socioeconomic status, culture, skin color. The feelings are universal. The feelings of grief, the feelings of losing people that you love, shock, I think like those core feelings are what you can build a story on, but you have to search out the people who have lived through it and not just make it up from because you saw a television program, Yeah.
Fantastic.
Tetyana, I'm really interested about the fact that you can speak 7 different languages. Just from a linguistic point of view, in terms of, I completely agree that everyone's similar and got the same feelings and emotions, but is there a better language to convey certain emotions from your own experience?
It's like a party trick, isn't it? Like, I'm like, here, let me teach you how to, speak or swear in this language. I think, obviously, my first language is Ukrainian. So I will say that there are things that cannot be translated that just feel and sound better in Ukrainian. And I think, anybody whose native language is that language, so Italians with Italian or kind of etc., like the way they express emotion in their native language is the best way you can, is the best thing for somebody speaking language. Like, I can teach you how to swear in Ukrainian, I can teach you how to say things in Italian, but you're not going to feel it like somebody who speaks it natively. But
So how do you navigate that then as a writer? Like, say you write a scene in Ukrainian and you think, this is what I want to say. And then maybe you translate it into English and you think, it's not hitting the same way. Like, how do you navigate that?
I think you have to get as close as possible. I think, it's like I always use the thing my grandmother used to say to me. It's a phrase. It's not going to make sense in English, but it's called, if I would stress about something or I would overthink something, she'd say, "Indik dumau dumau is doch," which means the turkey sat and thought and overthought so much, he dropped dead from overthinking. So, but translated, it's like wordy and like doesn't make sense. But so I would say if I wanted to say that in a book, I can't say that. I would have to say you're going to kill yourself if you overthink it. It's the same. It's not the same, but you have to get as close as possible.
Brilliant.
I will say though that in different languages, my favorite ones to swear in are Ukrainian and Italian.
You're more than welcome to do that right now if you'd like.
Yeah.
All right, I'll compromise. Can you say welcome to the Writing Community Chat Show in Ukrainian?
Привітаємо до Writing Community Chat Show.
Yay. Fantastic. Right, we're gonna have to let me do one of these reviews before we do move on. So in a second, guys, your chance to ask questions. Please start sending them in. Yeah, the reviews for this book have been. There's so much emotion in the reviews for this book. Every single one of them is a 5-star review saying they'll never forget this story. They're so emotional. One of them said, what can I say but wow, this story is definitely not going to leave my head anytime soon. First, I must congratulate Tetyana for an absolutely extraordinary novel that is seriously needs to be made into a movie. That is a great one. They're all very similar. There was another one saying, I went through more than one of the box of tissues reading this story. And that's from a Goodreads reviewer who had 5 stars. And we all know Goodreads reviewers are notoriously bad. So that is incredible to have received. How do you feel about that kind of feedback? But also, if it was to be optioned into a movie, would you have an idea on your main character's casting?
Okay, so firstly, I'm just grateful. I mean, I wouldn't be here without my readers. And honestly, like even people who might not like it, any review is great because it means somebody took the time to read my words. And that's exactly why I'm doing what I'm doing. So, but I'm very, very touched that I can make people so emotional. Yeah. Like my husband says, I get paid to make people cry. But yeah, I mean, fingers crossed, I do think this one would be an incredible multi-part series or movie. I have the rights team on deck, like trying to see if anybody is interested in optioning it, and it would be incredible. I do have it's funny. I do have an idea. I actually cast in my head the child of Ukraine, and it's his name is, oh my God, it's Word's family now. Hang on. He was in Homeland and he played a baddie towards the end of the series. Oh my God. I completely forgot his name, but I think he might be Georgian. And he's like tall, dark, rough. And there is a Ukrainian actress, and I forgot her name, but I cast her as Yulia in the previous book. For this one, I'm not actually sure. I probably had in my head when I was writing certain character kind of ideas or actors, but I didn't write it down. But it's something, gosh, it would be the icing on top of the cake. Yeah.
You explain actors like I do.
It's the guy that's tall.
I know. I'm exactly the same. Okay, guys, we're going to move on to the final part of the show because this conversation has been fantastic and we're going to run out of time if we don't. So part 3 is your chance to ask questions to Tetyana, and we're going to ask our own chat show questions too. So please do send some in if you have them. Thank you ahead of time, and we'll get into part 3. So, Mr. Hooley, can you start us off with the classic WCCS questions, please?
Yeah, so the first question is, if you could take any character from fiction and make that character your own, which character would you choose and why?
Ooh. Okay. I would probably pick, oh God, it's a tough one. I would probably pick, and this is a bit of a depressing character, but I'd probably pick Stoner. From the novel Stoner, the main character. He is so beautifully written and such a quiet, humble human being. And he's a perfect character, but he's also problematic. He's a misogynist and he's grumpy, but his character arc in that whole story, I mean, I will never forget. And I've probably said this millions of times to friends of mine. When I read Stoner, I remember when I ended that book, I was sitting on the kitchen counter and I was sobbing my heart out. Like, it is a beautiful story. And I heard a few years ago that they were making it into a film. And I think they cast Casey Affleck. And I think just the character, if you've never read the book Stoner, it's just a really quiet, powerful book. Beautiful.
I've not read that, and I think I'll try and find that.
Yeah.
Cool. If you could, following on, if you could take any fictional world and step into that world, whether it's in a TV, a show, a film, or a book series or a book, what fictional world do you want to step into just for one day?
I would say the book that affected me very early on in my life and made me want to try writing, which was A Wrinkle in Time. That book, when I first read it, I was in high school and I was blown away by the worlds that Madeline created. And I am just in awe of that book. And it still affects me even now. I think about it. It's just wild. Yeah.
Brilliant. We've got another couple of staple questions, and this one has become a season 11 sort of staple one. But I love the fact that we're on YouTube. I love the fact that people could watch it back in the future, 10, 20, 50 years, maybe even more from now, and they can see this. So if somebody was to take over your body of work and use all your characters and all the worlds that you created, obviously you've got 2 books there now, but let's say you've got a dozen more perhaps, and take ownership of it, what advice would you give to them? What would you want them to do?
I would say let them be human, let them be complicated, let the characters be flawed. I think nothing has to have a tidy ending. I want these characters to be relatable, but not in a tidy Hollywood way. I want them to make bad choices sometimes. I want them to grieve. I want them to love. I want people to see themselves in the characters. I would hate for them to be sewed up neatly in a way that's kind of a pretty package. I like scars in people. I like flawed stories. And I think we learn more from stories like that than we do from, the perfect ones.
That's a great answer. Love that. I'm interested, this question is from me. As someone who is a trained singer, have you ever karaoke'd, and what would be your go-to karaoke song?
Oh, I love karaoke. I used to love, what's it called? Lucky Voice. And I think there's one, is that in Soho? There's a Lucky Voice somewhere. Anyway, I love karaoke. So, but fun fact about trained singers, we are terrible at karaoke because all we do is try and impress people, but we don't do it on purpose, but because we're so trained that everyone's like, you need to be drunk and singing badly.
Yeah.
That's the fun of karaoke. But I would say, if I could hit these notes, I would do Chandelier by Sia.
Wow.
But the way she does it, you can't copy it. It's just really difficult. Yeah.
Wow. Chris, have you karaoke, Chris?
Yeah. One of my go-to karaoke songs was Drops of Jupiter by Train.
Oh, I love that one.
Brandon says, I can't wait to be drunk and singing badly this weekend.
Well, can I join you? Oh my God, Journey! Oh, Journey is my band. I know every song by heart from Journey.
Can we? I think we need a demonstration.
No,
not going for it.
Next time, and I can do it.
Okay.
You see, I don't want to bring the tone down with the final question, but I'm going to have to. So you're on your deathbed and you're looking back at your writing career. What would you be happy with? What is success to you?
That people saw me just as I presented myself, they saw, and I hate this word, it's been used so much on social media, but authentic. I just want people to see me as an honest, hardworking human being. And I want that to shine through in my books. You know, what you see is what you get. And I really hope that I can affect people in my life that way, because, you know, things will disappear, but kind of words and reputation and energy matter, and that's what lasts, you know. So
wow, that's fantastic.
Thanks.
Cool. Okay, we've got a couple of questions there from the audience, so what I'll do is I'll read those out before we wrap this up, and we'll start with Halo's question. Thank you, Halo. Always great questions from you. And she says, what are some aspects of Ukrainian culture that you wish were more well known?
Oh, that's a good one. Thanks, Halo. I would say that our art that has been sold to people as Russian, so lots of paintings, lots of books by Russian authors. I really wish, and I think this is happening now, I really wish people would learn about how much Ukrainians have contributed to the modern world and to the kind of to generations before, as far as artists, as far as technology, you know. So yeah, I wish our music kind of is a bit more seen. I think we were always hidden away, and I really hope that people learn more about Ukraine, not just because it's a war narrative. I just want them to learn about who Ukrainians are. So yeah. So slowly, I hope, you know, that will kind of happen over time. But yeah, and our food isn't just like meat and potatoes. It's actually really, really delicious. And our pickled kind of vegetables and things, it's just really unique. Yeah.
Brilliant. Cool. Brandon has got a question. If you have described something as indescribable, sorry, very small there, haven't you already described it?
I think you need to be a writer, Brandon. And I think you need to write satire. That is my recommendation for you.
Good stuff. And Halo's finishing off with, what books do you have planned for the future? And of course, is the question we were going to ask. What is next for you in terms of writing?
Okay, so at the moment, I'm focusing on book promotion, and then we'll see kind of what rights do with this next book. My plan right now, I've actually collaborated on a script with a Ukrainian director, and I'm going to LA in August to see the filming, which is great. And her movie, it's a short film, but she hopefully is going to turn it into a feature film that is basically a Ukrainian diaspora story about the old clashing with the new. And it's sort of like Little Miss Sunshine, but a Ukrainian family. So I'm looking forward to that. I am developing self-publishing kind of courses. Nice. And that will be available if you go on my website, tetyanadenford.com. You can sign up, and then I will keep everybody posted on the news about that. And my partner, who used to work in publishing in the UK, she and I had one season of something called The Craft and Business of Books, which is on YouTube. We're going to resurrect that at some point this year, because we just want to lift the lid on the industry and basically help people from a creative end and from a business end to see if self-publishing is right for them or traditional publishing is right for them. So, and I also work on a podcast called Ukrainian Spaces that is on Twitter. And I'm really proud of that because I'm there with a bunch of Ukrainian activists who are very, very bold and talented. And that's kind of teaching people about real Ukrainian history and what Ukrainians have had to go through as far as colonization. So yeah, full plate.
It sounds incredible, all of those things. And what I'll do over the next day or so is update the YouTube and podcast description to have the links to those things in there. So if you're interested, check those out, especially the website, which I've been on, and it's fantastic. Brilliant. Chris, have you got any more questions before we wrap this up? Because it's an hour and 15. Obviously, we were a bit late into the show, but that's perfect timing. So
yeah, I was going to ask one that relates to Bookouture and your fellow Bookouture authors, if that's okay. And I was going to say collaborate, marry, and kill. And I'm going to elaborate because if I don't, that's a bit dangerous. So who would you like to collaborate with? Who would you like to marry in terms of a good partnership and to have them be supportive of your work and your writing? And then which character of somebody else's work would you like to kill?
Oh God. Okay. Collaborate. I would like to collaborate with the author Lisa Regan. She actually writes a series of crime novels, and they are phenomenal. Just really, really good. And she's a book couture author, and I mean, she just doesn't stop. I don't know how many books she's written at this point, but they just sell like hotcakes, and I'm so impressed with her. And I would love to collaborate on something new. I've never written crime. I would love to try my hand at that. Mary would be my editor. I love her. Her name is Harriet, and she is just phenomenally talented and sweet and lovely and everything you would want in an editor. I mean, she's like my therapist, my cheerleader, my mentor. I love her. And kill, oh my God. I don't know. I can't pick. I'm just trying to think.
That's a tough one.
Do I have to pick a book couture?
No, we can open it up to any fictional character.
I would say the fictional character that I would like to kill would be, oh God. Okay. In The Light Between Oceans, the book by M.L. Stedman, which is an inspiration for me. And that's how I got, it's so cinematic and beautiful, and they made a movie of it. The character that I would like to kill is in the book, they find a baby washed up like on their little island, and they keep it, but eventually it's problematic because they find out that the mother is still alive and searching for the baby. But they want to keep the baby. So I would kill the mother in that book because I want them to have the baby, which is terrible. But also, like, I'm like, they deserve the baby. They found it. So.
Oh my goodness.
Finders keepers. Yeah.
Well, I thought you were going in the baby direction. I'm so glad you didn't.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, one more from me, and that would be this should be good because I think you might have a good answer to this, but when it comes to working with an editor, and so Harriet, for you, what is the one best tip you've had from your editor that's helped you on your writing journey?
I think just to be confident and not let imposter syndrome get in the way. And I think imposter syndrome is such a hard one for any writer at any point in their career. It just hovers all the time. And you think you are crap at your job. You think it's pointless. You're going to get fired. You're not going to make any money. People are going to hate your books. It's a constant in your head, and you have to battle through that. And having somebody like Harriet, or just having a really good team, an editorial team, or people you work with, whether it's digital, whether it's traditional publishers, or an agent even, somebody who reminds you, first of all, it's okay to write to your editors if you need to, or your agent, just to say, I'm having a terrible day and this is not going well and blah, blah, blah. And they will be there for you. You can lean on them, but also for them to remind you, like, it's okay. This happens to everybody. Just keep going.
Yeah.
You know? And I have a brilliant mentor. I'm just going to drop her name in because I love her. And she has no reason to champion me because we've actually never met in person, but I'm such a fan of her work. And her name is Fiona Melrose. And she is a beautiful writer, but way in the beginning, she was like really cheerleading me. But this time around for my second novel, she said, just 2 bad pages a day. She said that to me, and it got me through this manuscript. Genuinely, I sat down and I'm like, oh, this is going to suck. This scene is going to suck. But I just kept writing, blah, 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 blah. And then I had pages that I could edit. You can't edit a blank page. So if you sit down and write 2 bad pages. So between Harriet and Fiona, I am very blessed to have a good team around me.
Outstanding. Fantastic.
Yeah. Yep. Final question. Where can people find your work? I think we've covered it a little bit, but where can they also find information about you?
So I'm on my website, tetyanadenford.com. You get news and updates about any courses I'm doing or any book news. I am on Instagram as Tetyana Writes. I am on Twitter as Denford Author. I also just signed up to Threads on Instagram. I am on LinkedIn. You can find me on Craft and Business of Books on YouTube. And I think that's where I am. Yeah. I'm trying to find anywhere else. I don't know, but yeah. And you can find my articles if you Google my name. I'm Guardian, New York Times, whatever. So yeah, come and find me. Thanks, Halo. Look.
You can indeed find, and we will leave links in the description. So just before when we do finish, Tetyana, if you want to hang around and chat to us after, don't switch it off. But if you want to go and get on with your day, you can do so. Everyone, thank you for tuning in. I know it's a bonus show on a Monday, and it was kind of late announced by our part, and that's our own fault. But we'll be back on Wednesday with another bonus show before Friday, finishing up season 11, which is craziness. But it's all down to you guys and supporting the show. So thank you very much. And we will see you on Wednesday. From me, from Chris, and from Tetyana, thank you very much. We'll see you all very soon.
Thanks,
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.